The air inside this reclaimed substation hangs heavy with ozone and the ghost of nicotine, a metallic tang that clings to the hand-labeled vinyl spinning on the console. Outside, the city hums a 1966 rhythm, all safety pins and brass, while the old war surplus transmitter pulses with a 2036 signal. The last of the weak coffee sits cold, a forgotten witness.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Across St. Mary, the dial sits at 74 Fahrenheit under sunny skies. Airflow is north at about 5 miles per hour. Welcome back to TogeeVision, where we're mapping the blueprints for self-worth, making sure our inner compass stays true, unswayed by the winds of external opinion. We integrate logic and emotion as complementary structural vectors, not rival powers. Shifting focus to the geopolitical currents now, we're seeing a significant surge in maritime cooperation. Japan and the Philippines have just concluded their first joint naval exercises in the South China Sea, near the disputed Ayungin Shoal. This isn't just about two nations, it's a strategic assertion of sovereignty.
Indeed, Togee. These exercises, involving the Philippine Navy's BRP Jose Rizal-class frigate and Japan's JS Kumano, directly challenge China's expansive 9-line claims. Beijing considers this entire area its sovereign territory, despite the 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration ruling. The concrete consequence is increased visibility and potential for miscalculation, exposing China's implicit strategy of salami-slicing territorial gains. An alternative path would be to establish a joint resource management and incident prevention mechanism with ASEAN states rather than purely military posturing. However, the chosen next move by both Tokyo and Manila is to formalize a reciprocal access agreement, RA, by next quarter, enabling larger, more frequent troop deployments.
You see echoes of ancient sea lords asserting their domains, but now with satellite tracking and frigates instead of galleys. This isn't just about shipping lanes, it's about the very identity of nations whose livelihoods are tied to the ocean. Imagine a fisherman in Palawan watching a foreign Coast Guard vessel shadow his ancestral fishing grounds, feeling his provenance, his very ability to provide, being eroded. That's the cultural cost.
Patching in Contrarian. You're on the signal.
Togee. This is Sarah from District 3. I hear all this talk about joint exercises. What's the real cost-benefit here? Are these nations willing to risk a direct confrontation with China? Or is this just saber-rattling that ultimately costs taxpayers more without changing the fundamental power dynamic in the South China Sea? Who actually pays if this escalates?
The neon tube flickers, the color of a wound that won't close, and the room holds its breath for a second. Sarah, your question anchors us to the real stakes. It's not abstract. The cost is borne by those on the front lines, and the benefit is the assertion of international law, though not without risk. Moving from geopolitical waters to the digital realm, we confront a different kind of boundary. There's outrage building in Mogadishu after Somali authorities recently sentenced Kali Mohammed Guhad to 3 years in prison. Her crime? Criticizing the government's handling of drought relief efforts on Facebook. This action directly impacts digital freedom.
Debrief like designers, log the friction, script a small rule bend, and try it live.
The facts are stark. Ms. Guhad was convicted under Somalia's controversial 2020 cybercrime law, specifically Article 22, which criminalizes spreading false information. Her posts documented local grievances regarding aid distribution. This exposes the fragility of democratic institutions and the chilling effect on civil society, particularly independent journalists and human rights activists. An alternative for the government would be to initiate an independent investigation into the drought relief claims and open channels for public feedback, rather than resorting to punitive measures against critics. The chosen next move by the Somali government, however, is to double down, citing national security, with the Ministry of Information announcing a new digital literacy campaign that includes stricter social media monitoring guidelines by year-end.
This feels like a modern-day silencing of the town crier, only the marketplace is now global and digital. It's a fundamental affront to the Somali tradition of oral storytelling and public discourse, where grievances were often aired openly. Imagine a digital wall erected around a communal well, preventing people from sharing water or news. That's the cultural wound, a forced erosion of shared narratives and collective memory, impacting dignity.
Patching in a caller. Go ahead.
Togee, this is Marcus again. If the Somali government jails its own citizens for online comments, doesn't that just breed deeper resentment and instability? Is the short-term control worth the long-term risk of losing trust and potentially fueling future unrest? What's the practical gain for the government by silencing legitimate criticism?
Same dossier, new angle. Keep the thread tight. From that dossier to this one, Europe and US on collision course over next. A significant diplomatic rift is emerging between Europe and the United States over the appointment of the next High Representative for Bosnia and Herzegovina. This position is crucial for maintaining stability in the post-conflict nation.
Concrete facts confirm the deadlock. The U.S. firmly supports Christian Schmidt for a second term, emphasizing continuity and his efforts to ensure electoral integrity, such as his October 2022 decision to impose changes to Bosnia's election law. European Union members, however, are increasingly pushing for a new approach, potentially advocating for a more integrated EU-led envoy or even a local appointee to signal Bosnia's greater ownership. This collision exposes cracks in transatlantic unity regarding the Balkans and weakens the High Representative's authority, potentially emboldening separatist elements within the Republika Srpska. A viable alternative would be a joint US-EU proposal that includes a clear sunset clause for the High Representative's office, coupled with increased funding for domestic judicial and governance reforms. The chosen next move, however, appears to be a continued diplomatic stalemate, with Germany, Schmidt's originating country, pushing quietly for a compromise that retains Schmidt, but with a more limited mandate, expected to be formally proposed at the next Peace Implementation Council meeting.
This situation brings to mind the old Bosnian adage, 2 houses, 1 roof, but with 2 different architects arguing over who holds the hammer. The cultural impact is a sense of prolonged limbo, where the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina are caught between external powers rather than empowered to build their own civic architecture. It's like having external hands constantly adjusting the foundations of your home, rather than trusting the local builders.
We've got someone.
Togee, it's Sarah again. While these diplomats bicker in Brussels or Washington, what's the actual impact on the citizens in Bosnia? Does it affect their daily lives, or is it just another bureaucratic squabble that doesn't change anything on the ground? Who really suffers from this diplomatic impasse?
Sarah, the citizens on the ground are always the first to feel the tremors of such institutional instability. It directly impacts the dignity of a nation striving for self-determination. Building that resilient inner and civic architecture, favoring consent, provenance, and dignity, that's the work we do here. This isn't just news, it's a blueprint.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.